This is Michael Larson presenting the final results for the MarkStrat marketing simulation for Team Ryzen within the aqua industry. The share price index of Ryzen has increased from 1,000 at the initial start value to just under 2,300 after an 8-year period. We sell brands in all 5 segments. This is up from the initial start with 2 products designed for 2 segments. Additionally, revenues have increased to 101.7 million, up from the initial 41.5 million. This is an average increase of 7.5 million per year. As I mentioned earlier, Ryzen has 1 product for each segment. Explorers, we released Rome in period 7. When the simulation ended, we had a 73% purchase intent on this product, and it was the highest selling product in its segment. Rock, which was our rock through essentially the whole simulation, had typically hovered with a purchase intent of approximately 60%. Unfortunately, during the 8th period, the purchase intent had dropped from approximately 64% to 43%. In period 7, we released Root, which ended with a purchase intent of 28.5%. This was also the leader in that segment. In period 6, we introduced Rose, which was designed for shoppers. This had a purchase intent of 18.8% and was trending very well, up from 9.2% in period 7. So we're seeing good growth with Rose. The final product was kind of a problem product, was Roz. In period 8, we had a purchase intent of 3.6%. This was down from 3.9% in period 7. This product struggled with sales all the way since its release in period 2. Lessons learned. It's essential to invest early. We did this by essentially requesting a loan right off the bat. We felt that this would get us a good jump and get us ahead of everyone. Another big lesson to learn was that the R&D efforts needed to meet the evolving needs of a segment, not the current needs. Another thing was to stay on top of your products and upgrade regularly and give a facelift and meet and move with the needs of the segments so you maintain your position in the market. Another thing, critical factor, was to analyze the competition during the simulation and make sure that our brand stands out and that they aren't gaining on us. One lesson we learned early on was that 1 product couldn't target multiple segments. That was kind of a negative thing. We learned that 1 product's got to be designed and targeted specifically for a segment that had the best results. And finally, we had the best results when we invested in market research early, right after a product was just released or right after the product had been upgraded. What could we have done better? One thing the team had discussed was maxing out on the loan in the beginning. We could have had just that much better of a jump. We could have maybe done another R&D project. We could have maybe funneled some more time and energy into our sales force or advertising. no matter what, there probably would have been, we could have seen a good payoff with some good decisions, and investing early is a good practice. One thing we failed to do frequently was cost reduction R&D. Our R&D efforts were always kind of pushing out to meet the demands of the consumer. Um, we didn't, and as a result, we had poor margins and a lot of products just because we were we weren't focused on reducing our costs. Overly conservative in pricing is another thing we did. We were always kind of aggressive in pricing, and the slash and burn approach isn't always the best approach. And that was another thing that kind of hurt us in contribution in the end. The other thing we failed to do was focus only on what was important for the segment, mainly for that product's characteristics. We tried to meet all of the requirements of the segment. One thing we could have done better was just try and meet what was important to them and let the characteristics that were secondary kind of fall by the wayside. We also failed to react appropriately when we knew our competitors were making moves. Like I had mentioned earlier, in period 7, we knew that Lorax was doing some work to reposition Loop, and we failed to do anything with Rock, and as a result, we lost a chunk of the market share. Finally, as you can see in the table with the red arrows, we had failed to launch and properly schedule our production. So, and we ended up running out of inventory, and that was just lost sales. On to the 4 Ps. For the product, essentially what we did was each brand was designed specifically for each segment. These designs were essentially based off the semantic scales typically, and the product was generated using both that semantic scales and looking at competition, leading competition in that segment. One of our big failures in our methodology was, as I had mentioned earlier, focusing on what is important, and that was kind of evident with the way Ross struggled. For pricing, we tried to have a strong approach to pricing where we had a low base cost and we would have lower comparative pricing on the going out to the consumers. Our pricing methodologies weren't perfect. As I have mentioned, we were a little aggressive sometimes, pricing too low, and that was one of the things that hurt our margin. Place. Our place was important. Depending on segment, they would shop at certain locations, be it specialty stores like Explorers, especially preferred specialty stores, and mass merchandisers was a favored among savers. And each segment kind of had purchasing habits, so we tried to match our sales force distribution with their requirements and shopping habits. For promotion, our budget allocation, we always tried to be smart. This was a huge portion of our marketing expenditures every period. It was the main thing we spent money on was advertising. And we always tried to have, when we did the advertising, we tried to have a strong strategy to either typically focusing on one product, trying to gain a strong position in the market with that product, or maintain a position with that product in the market. So that kind of drove our decision making. Was each period, the biggest thing we did was focus our budget in advertising on one product or one specific goal. Segmentation and positioning. Um, the table at the bottom left essentially shows the evolution of Ryzen's product lines. We'd started with rock and roll. In period 2, Roz was released. And in period 2, roll was, or I'm sorry, in period 3, roll was discontinued. We had a couple of periods where we tried to tweak Roz and make it better or advertise better, kind of to no avail. Eventually, by increasing our production of rock, we were able to get a much better position in SPI and improve our budget, our period budget. And once we had done that, it kind of opened the door for us to add products like Rose, Root, and Rome. Future strategy. We have some specific strategies by product. Roz has been pretty much flatlining, so we got to come up with we got to do something brand new with Roz. Maybe discontinue it or give it a total brand new facelift. It's just been failing the way it's been going. Rose, we want to continue to increase the awareness amongst shoppers. This was a very, very good segment to be in because they had good projected growth. So we definitely want to focus on that. Roz with the Savers was similar, an important segment to focus on with the most growth. Finally, we want to reposition rock to beat loop. At the end, we had started kind of improving our production planning methods. It would be wise for us to keep continuing doing that and have a better grasp on the amount of units to hold and produce rather. So those are kind of, in a nutshell, some of the things that need to happen. So for the SWOT analysis, we owned a good chunk of the market share, and we're in all 5 markets. So that puts us in a good position. Weaknesses, some of the competition has been nipping at our heels, and it's definitely problematic. Roz, we had been failing to capture the savers market, and overall we had lower contribution than we had hoped. So, and that was ultimately hurting our SPI. So opportunities was to gain position for our 4 base brands, and improve Roz and get that shiny and new and up and running so we have a product in the savers market. And then also we want to just keep an eye on growth and just plan properly for anything that's happening. Threats, we by the end we had a lot of threats. Lorax had taken their position back with the professionals with Loop from Rock, so that was very problematic. And Simplex and Triumph had very steady growing trends towards the end of the simulation. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. appreciate your time.